Okay, so we're about to start. So thank you for joining this Microsoft PPM event, which is being presented by Wellington and special guest BOC Gases, part of a Lind group. This is the first of a two-part webinar series. So today we're focusing on increasing visibility into project performance. Next week's session, taking place on the 14th, will be focused on demonstrating how you can improve resource management. Just to introduce myself, my name's Baz Kinder and I am a Microsoft PPM consultant at Wellington. I'm also a virtual team member within Microsoft. My role is primarily to educate organizations on how they can work smarter by ditching, to some extent, the use of Microsoft Excel and by embracing Microsoft PPM. I've also got David Maffin joining me as well. So David, would you just like to introduce yourself quickly?
Good morning, everybody. It's David Maffin. I'm Engineering Resource Manager for BOC Gases within the UK.
Thank you very much. Just before we begin, during the webinar you can ask questions using the Q&A panel. We'll try to answer them during the session or we will be able to respond offline. So moving on to the agenda. Today I'll start with a very brief introduction to Wellington before looking at the tool that many project-driven organizations use. I'm referring of course to Excel and the associated pitfalls when using it in place of an enterprise PPM solution. In fact, it will be David from BOC Gases that will be presenting that part. That brings me on to the next topic. So how can you work smarter using Microsoft PPM? I'll be covering that off before covering off next steps if you would like to learn more. So a bit about Wellington. We've been helping clients since 2001. We offer a wide range of specialist project management services which include pure PPM and PMO consulting, specialist services around Microsoft PPM which span discovery and design, right through to providing ongoing remote administration for the entire user base or third-line support to your administrators. Last but not least, we're also APM accredited training providers, and our training services span project management, PMO, and of course Microsoft PPM. If you'd like to get in touch to inquire about any of those services, then please don't hesitate. My contact details will be coming up at the very end. So we have been helping clients for quite a while now, and as you can see from the client list, we work with quite an eclectic mix that spans a variety of sectors. What most of these clients have in common is that they have transitioned from using Microsoft Excel to using Microsoft PPM, and that for us is quite a common scenario, and it's the scenario that BOC Gas is going through right now. If you'd like to read some stories of how organizations have accomplished that, we have got a whole batch of brand new case studies hitting our website within the next few weeks, so please do keep an eye on our website. So yes, before looking at Microsoft PPM, let's have a look at some research into what tools are typically used in project environments. And I think we know what the answer to this is. So what tools are used to track project progress and performance? Well, of course, it is Excel, as found by the Forrester report, which looked at the total economic impact of deploying project online. So if you want to download that report, it is available. So what about resource management? And it's a similar scenario there as well. So if we look at the State of Project Management annual survey from 2017, we found that just under 50% of the respondents stated that they were using Microsoft Excel. And in just a couple of minutes, David's going to be explaining how they've been using Excel and currently are using Excel to track resources as well as project performance. But before I hand over to David, I am just going to cover off very quickly one final quote from the Forrester report, which I think is quite crucial. So the use of Excel impeded visibility into projects for leadership, finance and project management offices, so PMOs, hindering the ability to strategically manage project portfolios. So that is what Forrester found when they conducted this research. So on that note, I'm going to hand over now to Dr. David Maffin, who's going to provide an overview of his business area, an overview outline of how Excel is currently being used within BOC Gases, and the real-world pain that's causing and the resulting business consequences of that. All of which I should point out are hopefully about to be resolved, touch wood, by Microsoft PPM. So David, over to you.
Thank you very much, Baz, and hello everybody. So what I'd like to share with you is my experience over the past, particularly the past couple of years, due to some changes we've gone through in BOC of using Excel as the primary means for managing our whole program and delivery of projects. So if we move on, what you can see on this next slide is that's actually a few screenshots from our tracker and project and resource tracker. And I ought to say we are not just tracking projects here, but we're also tracking our support work, so we have trackers for each of those. You can also see some pivot charts there which show loadings, and that's loading of individuals. There are also graphs which show loading across the functions of the team as a whole. So we are actually trying to do quite a lot within the Excel spreadsheet. What I'd like to do though is let me first give you a bit of context of what we do in BOC, because there's no doubt, you know, spreadsheets have their place in the right environment, and that will probably help you appreciate some of the challenge and the degrees of usefulness that we've been able to get from our spreadsheet. So just to kick off then, in 2013 we had 3 lines of business within the UK, and from an engineering perspective we decided to consolidate our engineering functions into one central engineering team. And that created a greater degree of complexity for us, as we're facing off as a big function across a wider number of stakeholders across the business. So we have around about 100 engineers, and we surge resource by using contract resource and external contracting companies to support us in our work. We are, as I said, delivering both projects and engineering support, and in fact for the discipline teams, engineering support probably accounts for around 50% of the engineering hours we engage with. And that's supporting both the internal business, commercial teams, but also operations, and we're also doing projects which we've sold our services to for external customers. I'd suggest that typically from a project's point of view, we've probably got 50 active projects at any one time, and they can range from relatively small projects at say 50 or 100,000 pounds to 5 million typically, but we will have projects on a much larger scale as a kind of exception. And as I say, we're dealing with multiple stakeholders across the business, all generating demand for projects as well as support work, and a real challenge for us is then to prioritize that, plan our programs, and then deliver that to the customers. Prior to implementing the PPM solution, we've been using the Excel workbook, as you've seen, to track projects, our support work, to be able to plan and allocate resource and get a view through the resource charts on how we're loaded overall terms, but also how individual people are loaded. And I have to say that the tools we've developed, you know, they've served well in the kind of initial period within the function. That has provided us with a fair visibility on overall demand and capacity, how we're loaded individually. But we do have to recognise as well that, you know, trying to do what we're doing with Excel on the scale we're doing it, that does represent some challenges. So let's have a look at these. And we use the word pain, and, you know, I think probably one of the key things, as you have gathered, in using a spreadsheet, we have multiple users of the tool. So we've got the managers of both the projects and the discipline teams, but also the project engineers as well, they're using the tool. So that does create some problems in terms of access. And also, I think as a consequence of that, and the nature of using Excel spreadsheets, where you've got lots of complex functions, formulas, pivots, and the fact that, you know, not all users are as diligent with the tool as you would wish there to be, there is inevitability that you get corruption, and that does require a fair amount of work in both cleansing and doing the investigative repair work from time to time to keep everything on a level playing field. I think it's fair to say, though, that the biggest pain point, that whether it's myself from the resource management point of view or those who are using the tool, it is a very time-consuming, it's a slow activity, and making changes, particularly where you're doing more substantial things, where you're trying to do updates, review the program of work and so forth. So I'd suggest that scenario analysis, anything like that, which is going beyond simple considerations, that does become a challenge and difficult to do. So examples for us of that would be accessing the impacts, for instance, of a major customer win. That's quite a substantial and challenging activity. And even if we're just looking at individual projects and we're looking at our resourcing position and looking at different resourcing strategies, do we do in-house, do we do external, trying to evaluate that and assess that is a fairly challenging thing to do, and certainly something that's difficult to do in the sort of timely manner that you'd wish. So apart from the degree of change, degree of pain I've just mentioned, there is a net result of consequences which did actually ultimately impact our performance. So it does mean that from where we might wish to be, we are, I suppose, suboptimal in terms of our ability to make good decisions, whether it's about prioritisation and resourcing and decisions around specific projects. But also it means we're suboptimal in terms of the utilisation of engineering resource. So we're not necessarily as efficient from that respect. Which is not a good thing because that means money at the end of the day. And inevitably, it can also mean that in terms of how effectively deliver the work we're undertaking to our customers. So as I mentioned, for BOC, this has been an interim necessity to implementing a PPM tool. And we've been through a process of evaluating a number of PPM solutions before opting to implement Microsoft Project Online. And that's something we're active with at the moment, and we're intended to start the implementation process during the early part of next year. So that's my experience, and I'll now hand over back to Baz.
Excellent. Thank you very much, David. And I've just got to point out that it is Dr. David Maffin. David's got a PhD, and he has created one of the most impressive Excel workbooks I think I've ever seen, and I've seen quite a few. So, David, thank you very much. Let's talk about the way forward and delve into looking at Microsoft PPM and understanding what some of the benefits are versus Excel. So, through Microsoft Project, you, of course, get access to a scheduling engine, something that you don't necessarily have in Excel. So this makes planning a lot more efficient and reduces the chance of manual errors. Aside from this, Microsoft PPM also provides you with a centralized repository. So all of your project-related artifacts are in a single location. I'm going to be covering this off in greater detail on one of the upcoming slides, so I'll move on to real-time visibility as well as standardized reporting, both of which are significant benefits you'll gain through Microsoft Project Online, which provides a large number of standard views and reports, giving you instant visibility on project performance without you having to wait for manual reports to be churned out on a weekly or a monthly basis. Last but not least, one of the points that David made was that with Excel, corruption is inevitable. It takes a lot of time to then figure out what's gone wrong, what's happened. But it's not really the case with Microsoft Project Online. So not only does it offer 99.9% uptime guarantee, we can also put in lots of security measures as well, meaning that people can't necessarily do any damage to what's in the system. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the components that make up Microsoft PPM. And by the way, I should have mentioned this earlier, but PPM obviously stands for Project Portfolio Management. So there are two primary components that make up the entire solution set. And many of you are probably already familiar with the desktop solution Microsoft Project Professional, which I'm referring to here as the client application. This in itself provides a significant upgrade to using Excel, which some of you might be doing. However, if you do use the client application as a standalone solution, then you're still working in isolation. So you're creating islands of data and you can't join all the information together effectively. You can, however, work a lot smarter by adopting Project Online. And what you see on the right-hand side of the screen is is a screenshot of the homepage to Project Web App, otherwise known as PWA, which I'll be demonstrating in the next few minutes. What you do get with this, because you are working in the cloud and because you're working through a centralized portal like Project Online, you only get one version of the truth. So duplication of project files or document files or resource utilization, that doesn't really exist. It's a slightly different concept. So let's delve into a bit more detail now. And really the best way in which to view Microsoft Project Online is, as I've mentioned earlier, as a centralized project repository for all of the project information within your department or across the organization. And as you can see on the slide right now, Project Online does offer a lot of capability, and it caters for a very wide range of requirements. In a nutshell, as a solution, it can help you to capture project ideas. It can ensure that you're approving projects that are not only strategically aligned, but they're also feasible and that you can deliver them. It will also help you to ensure that those projects are being managed once they are approved in the right way, and that the resources are being effectively utilized through the Resource Center, which is something that I'll be covering off as a big topic in next week's webinar. Another major benefit through Project Online is the fact that you can automate and standardize your project reporting, which I know is a significant burden on many organizations, especially when you're using something like Excel in a standalone fashion. It can be very time consuming to consolidate all the data. Despite all this capability that's available, I'm not at any given time suggesting that an organization would deploy all of the feature set on day one. Most organizations roll out in a phased approach, with the emphasis being on small steps to achieve some quick wins, build your maturity gradually, but take a step in the right direction. So this now brings me on to the demonstration. A very quick caveat. I'm sure that you can all appreciate that this is an enterprise level solution. So this is not going to be a comprehensive overview of the solution set in its entirety, but more of a high-level overview of the key areas that will help you to increase visibility into project performance. So I am going to switch over to my live demo environment, which is what you can see on the screen right now. So just to give you a gentle introduction into this, what you can see on the home page is a series of tiles that get you started with using Project Web App. So this is a nice way for you to start interacting with the environment and learning more about it as it's first rolled out. And we've also got a bunch of tiles down here that are dynamic, that help you to navigate around, and that give you visibility on the number of pending approvals, the number of tasks that have been assigned to you, timesheets that maybe haven't been submitted, or risks and issues, again, that have been assigned to you to monitor. So these are dynamic tiles, and they would really help you out on a day-to-day basis, just really to focus in on the things that really matter. So starting off initially with the Project Center. So the Project Center is also occasionally known as the Project Register, which is what some of you might be maintaining in Excel at the moment. So rather than this being a manually populated list, anytime we create a new project in the system within Project Online, those projects become visible here in the Project Center. And this is one of many views that you can actually set up, and they are relatively straightforward to set up in the first place. Along the top, you've got what we would call a timeline view, showing you where we are today. So there's a today indicator. It shows you which initiatives are currently ongoing, which ones have already been and gone, and which ones are on the horizon. So you might use that type of view to highlight some of the key initiatives that are currently in flight. In the central part of the screen, you can see a variety of columns displaying various icons, such as the fact that there's a associated schedule, there are issues on the project, there are associated risks and documents. We can also see a breakdown of where the projects sit in their life cycle. So that's using some of the workflow capability that's also available through Project Online. So again, you're making very visible to everyone involved which stage of a life cycle a project sits, which departments they align to, the start dates, the finish dates. And we've also got these objective traffic light indicators being displayed as well. So once you've created your project at the very beginning, you've baselined it, which is effectively like taking a snapshot, indicating that if everything goes according to plan, then this is what the project would look like. We're then comparing the original baseline to the subsequent updates and presenting a very objective overview of how the project's performing from a health perspective, from a schedule perspective in terms of cost. And again, we've got a lot of columns being displayed there, and we've also got this Gantt chart view there on the right-hand side of the screen. Whoops. Let me scroll down and just show you that. But you're not limited to this view. You've got access to a range of views out of the box. So you've got the ability to create what we would dub global views, which is what we're looking at right now. Aside from that, you've also got the ability as an end user to go in and filter the views or to group to your hot content. So a lot of this is down to configuration. And that's the kind of thing that we would help you to set up. And we would also give you the training on how to do this yourselves so that you become, to a large extent, self-sufficient. So through the Project Center, you can see straight away that actually you're producing a real-time view. So anytime a project's been updated, and the changes are being published back to Project Online. That is what you're seeing right here in the Project Center. Something that every single project has associated against it is something that we would call a project site. So project site really is effectively a centralized repository for that specific project. It's where you are going to store the project documentation, it's where you're going to store your RAID logs, and it's where we also present items like this, the project summary web part. Which again is displaying the timeline view that we saw earlier to a greater level of detail in this instance. But we can also see very clearly how many tasks are falling behind, how many are upcoming. Let's just drill down into that actually, and you'll see who is deserving of a slap on the wrist. A number of people. So there we see the work breakdown structure. We can see the due dates of all these tasks, and we can also see who's been assigned against some of these tasks as well. And one of the things you've noticed here is we've also got Skype presence information integration in place as well. So straight away, if you want to interact with any of the team members, you can do that very easily just by hovering over the name. You can see straight away whether or not somebody is available or whether the status is set to do not disturb. You can start conversing either by sending an instant message or by phoning them or starting a video chat. So again, lots of visibility right there within the project site. And going back to the main home page, we can also see that there are sections there that enable the project managers to provide updates, perhaps weekly or monthly, stating from their perspective how they feel that the project is progressing. And they've also got the ability there to give you a subjective view of which color they think the project is going to be. It's most often green that's selected. There's also lots of capability there around document management, and you can also, of course, create risk and issue logs as well, and a lot of this is out of the box. And for those of you that are perhaps using SharePoint, you'd be pleased to know that Project Online is actually built on top of SharePoint. So all of the capability you get within SharePoint, you've also got access to here through the project site and through the wider Project Online environment. So that was a very quick look at a project site. So that's another way in which you can increase visibility. But you've also got access to a wide variety of dashboards and reports. So what I've done is I've just quickly jumped over now to the project portfolio dashboard that's available in Office 365. So this is providing you with a very comprehensive overview of the entire project portfolio. So project cost versus baseline cost is one of these standard out-of-the-box reports, and you can see that it's interactive. You've also got the ability to actually drill down into specific projects. So this one here is an example, the biothermal ear warming system. Well, first of all, we can see how it's performing against a whole wave of KPIs, so schedule, work, and cost. But you can also see what level of variance exists as well from, again, those perspectives, so schedule, work, and cost. So drilling down, you've also got access to the project summary, so you can actually gain visibility of how many tasks are actually slipping. In this case, you've got 25. You've got 2 instances of cost overruns, 3 instances of work overruns, and you've got quite a few tasks that are stuck in the past. You've also got a graph there as well showing you the top resources with task discrepancies. And what's great about this particular view is that all of that information is then broken down into greater level of detail using these tabs here at the bottom. You can, again, get some great insight at the click of a button. And what I'm showing you actually is completely out of the box. So this is not bespoke. This is not something that's been customized. This is available on day one. If you want to go in and present your senior executives with a executive summary, you can through the executive summary display. So name of the project, start date, baseline finish, finish variances, and you've also got a list there at the bottom of a number of milestones. If you do have want to see a lot more detail, you click on the Details tab, and we can now see a breakdown of every single task on the project. And against each task, we can also see finish variance, cost variance, work variance, and work in the past. And we've obviously applied here some conditional formatting. So lots of visibility of what's going on. You've also got a number of other reports available out of the box, which I'm just going to whiz through very, very quickly. So this one is task level, so top projects with work in the past, number of slipping tasks, cost overruns, and you've got the capability here at the bottom of actually expanding certain projects out to get visibility of what's going on at a task level as well. We've also got access to a resource dashboard, which I'm going to show you in brief. We're going to be going into a lot more detail next week, so please do tune into the webinar that's taking place on November the 14th, again at 12 o'clock. And if you haven't registered, and if you are currently tracking your resources using Excel, then that is a webinar that you do not want to miss. So this was the Office 365 Project Portfolio Dashboard. Something else that's available out of the box is the brand new project content pack for Microsoft Power BI. If you've currently got access to Office 365, then Power BI is something that you can access for free. There is a professional variant as well that incurs a small cost, but what I'm about to show you right now, you can actually use or access using the free Power BI license. So there's a whole series of pre-built dashboards and reports that I'm going to run you through right now. But you've got the ability to customize and to create your own dashboards and reports, and it's all very easy to do using Power BI. And what we are finding is that a lot of organizations now have senior executives that are more than happy to self-service reports. So rather than you having to produce manual reports every Friday or, at the end of every month or at the end of every quarter, senior executives increasingly are more than happy to go and access these live reports and drill down and look at the content they want to focus on. So on the screen right now, we've got the portfolio dashboard presenting a lot of information, and it's interactive. So if I want to drill down into a particular project, I click on that project name, and the reports that you see on the page update based upon that filtering. And again, you've got all these parameters at the top that I won't play with right now. But aside from this, you've also got access to the portfolio timeline. Very informative, again. Portfolio costs, portfolio milestones. We've also got risks and issues reports, and then we've got a whole wave of reports to focus in on resource management. But again, I'll be covering that off next week, so I'm going to skip over those for now and show you one final report, which is project status, which again looks very nice, but it's incredibly informative. And the thing to remember is that this is out of a box, and this is refreshed depending on which license you have. The data in the background is either refreshed once every 24 hours, or you can schedule it to refresh at a frequency of 8 times a day. And you can even specify the times at which you want the reports to actually refresh. And even though I'm showing you Power BI right now, one of the points that I do want to make is that you have got the ability to access the Project Online data through what we would call OData feeds, and you can access that information via Excel as well. So if you are, somebody that's quite sophisticated at using Excel, then you would like to create some new additional reports, and for whatever reason Power BI doesn't meet your needs, then again, you've got the ability to go into Excel, access the same data feeds, and to create your own reports. So that really concludes the very high-level presentation of the live demonstration, and we've barely scratched the surface there. So if you would like to see more, if you would maybe like to see a tailored demonstration, we can easily arrange that, and my contact details, again, will be coming up at the very end. But for now, we're going to continue with the slide deck and discuss next steps. So if you would like to see more, we can show you more. So we can provide you with bespoke demos for your organization to give you a tailored deeper dive into the capabilities of Microsoft Project Online. Alternatively, if you've already seen enough and you want to discuss in greater detail what an implementation of Project Online would look like in your organization, then we can provide you with on-site discovery days, the output of which is typically a tailored roadmap for your implementation alongside a customized proposal. Secondly, if you would like to get hands-on, we can set you up with a trial environment for a period of 90 days, and lots of organizations would use those to complete short proof of concepts or maybe to run a formalized pilot, and our recommendation would normally be to run a formalized pilot. If, however, you've already decided to implement Project Online and you would like to discuss how Wellington can support you with that journey, then again, please get in touch. Yes, before I do share my details on the final slide, I'd like to invite you all to take part in the State of Project Management Annual Survey 2018. This is something that's being led by Wellington, but it's being supported by the APM PMO Specific Interest Group and the Systems Thinking Specific Interest Group within the APM. It only takes 10 minutes of your time, and by completing the survey, you automatically enter a prize draw, and you could win anything from a £250 John Lewis voucher in time for Christmas or a ticket to next year's Future PMO conference. which is coming up now quite conveniently. So next year's one-day PMO event, it's going to be held again in London. It's going to be held during October. The date is to be finalised, but you can pre-register your interest now at futurepmo.com. So here's my email address as well as contact details to reach Wellington. Please feel free to contact us with any questions or to discuss how we can help you to increase your project management maturity and to implement Microsoft Project Online. But in closing, thank you very much for taking the time to view this session. We hope you found it beneficial.